This is New England Soccer Weekly with Tom Quinlan, Nick Giuliano, and Mike DeSilva on 790 The Score.
Oh, yeah! New England Soccer Weekly on Holy Week.
Look at the levels on the microphone.
That
Mike.
probably just went.
Yeah,
it's going to hurt a lot of people's ears.
Oh, well.
And probably break the equipment.
Good morning. How are you? Welcome on into New England Soccer Weekly. Mike, Nick, and Tom with you. Hope everybody is chilling like a villain, like Bob Dylan.
Okay. Anything else?
No. Did last week leave a bad taste in your mouth? Revs come off a 1-1 tie, first draw of the year versus New York City FC. Some interesting comments from Bruce during the week that we'll get to in a minute here. But as you enter match week 7, match week 7 here, you're sitting in third place, tied on points with Atlanta United. Cincinnati sits in first.
Standings watching
I understand
right now,
that, but it's you go from first to third, and you know what?
That's
you shouldn't have went from first to third.
See, I don't know
week.
if I agree with you, because when you watch that game, if you watched it back, it wasn't the best played game aesthetically. That was a week.
You could have stole 3 points.
See, I don't know if I agree again, because I think it was actually more evenly matched than you think. And I think a tie actually is appropriate for the level that we saw on the field at Gillette last week.
Well, Tom's not happy with it.
I know Tom's not.
He's table watching already.
Yes.
No, not that I'm not happy with it, but it felt like a game that you could have won. And I had a Spaces conversation with Seth.
See, but sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
I think they could have lost that game with the way that the end of it went.
The way the end of it went,
so I think
absolutely.
that's what I'm talking about. They started off great, they meaning the Revolution, and then the game evened out, and then they ended poorly again, and you end up with a 1-1 draw. That's how soccer goes sometimes.
I also, before we go any further, we need to put a disclaimer out there. When Tom does random Spaces, anything said in there does not reflect that of the show. Just Tom.
There was
just saying
that I even quoted you on. Or you.
Doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
I'm just putting a blanket
over it. It came out
it.
of my Twitter. It's my independent thing.
I see when you're live, and I'm like, oh, God.
Me too. I got that notification.
I got a little worried. I got
Sunday night.
scared.
What are we doing here?
Oh, boy.
Sunday night Spaces, because I think the conversation, I think a lot of people felt the same way I did. You walk out of that game versus New York City FC, and yes, it's only week 6, but you should have won. You should have won that game. Gustavo Bo puts you up 1-0, right? Then the goal gets taken back. Then you're still able to go up 1-0 on the Carlos Hill goal. Then New York City FC steals one back. A pretty nice goal off of a corner kick. You get killed on set pieces again.
Very nice goal.
The last 20 minutes in the past 2 home games now, you haven't looked great. We'll get to that in a minute, too. But then you still have 12, 13 minutes to still play with. And Giacomo Vrioni can't see the field to try to steal a goal.
Why are you so obsessed with this guy?
You are. You're actually
becoming weird.
He's eclipsing Buxa level.
Yeah, this is now like
it's wild.
Vrioni, and we
because it's a fair question.
I don't know if it is. The question has been answered multiple times. Like it's like the definition of insanity here. The guy's not. Bruce sees something that is not that he's that. Vrioni is not ready to be on the field. Why are we going to force him out there?
It is a good point, and it's another thing that we bring up as well. Like, do you want to see him on the field? Absolutely. Do I think he'll benefit starting a game playing with a bow and a heel and everyone around him? Absolutely. But there's something day-to-day that this coaching staff isn't seeing, and that's the reason why you're not seeing him on the field. And there's a lot of you out there, and you, Tom, you're making assumptions about a guy that you haven't seen play.
But it's
one way or another.
No, I haven't made assumptions. I'm asking a simple question. Why is it with 10 minutes to go in a game,
because
when your game is tied, can you not bring in your designated striker?
Stop with the designated striker. Yeah. It doesn't matter. To Bruce, it doesn't matter.
Asked and answered. Again.
He's had success time and time again. You have the one down year really last year with the Revolution due to losing players through the transfer market and through injuries. Vrioni is not fit. He hasn't. Bruce has mentioned multiple times. Any player, doesn't matter. He goes, you're coming to a new league. Doesn't matter what league. If you stay in Europe and you go from different leagues, within the European countries, whether you're coming from Europe to the United States, you move to a different league. It's different. In MLS is continuing to improve. You can't just walk in just because you're a designated player. God, I hope I hope that one day that position gets removed from the rosters in MLS, because it's people in your spaces that are so wrapped up and concerned with Vrioni because he's a stupid designated. Who cares if he's a designated player? He's a player on the team.
Do you think that was a winnable game on Saturday night?
Yes.
Okay, so then why is it? Same question. If it's a winnable game, put the guys in that put you in the best position to
But
win.
why? But clearly he's not.
He's
he doesn't
supposed to
see
be
it, Tom.
somebody that's supposed to put you in the
My
best
God,
position
guess what,
to
Tom?
win.
You know, my mom thought I was going to be born a girl. Guess what? I was born a boy. So I don't know what to tell you. Sometimes things just don't turn out the way you think they're going to be.
And also, like, again, this is something that you want to see. If you're asking me who I would have brought on off the bench, would it have been Josie Altidore or Giacomo Veroni? I would have wanted to see Veroni. But guess what? That's not what that coaching staff sees right now.
It's just, I mean, I got to pull up the exact amount of touches that Josie had, and listen, granted, is it a good thing that you probably have Josie back here and maybe he's in a different headspace? Sure. But at the end of the day, he's not supposed to be in that position that late in the game, and that's just, I think that's an overall indictment.
You have to keep in mind that Josie also was out on loan towards the end of last season where he was constantly playing. Vrioni has not seen real minutes in quite some time. He's still recovering from an injury. He's still learning the league. We've gone through this, and you know what? I refuse to fall victim to this whole, well, maybe this striker isn't panning out thing. I did it with Buxa. People roasted.
Learned your lesson?
Yeah, I learned my lesson. People, and rightfully, I'll take it. I'll own it. I was wrong. They roasted me for it on Twitter. People were pulling up receipts. That's fine. I refuse to do it again. If there's something, I think he's done enough, okay? Granted, some of the veterans that he brought in last season didn't pan out, and that's fine. At the end of the day, the season was a wash, okay? He tried to fill, positions that, with the injuries in the defense last year, losing some of your key guys, he tried to do it. It didn't work out. This year, though, you got to say, he's been doing pretty well. The team looks improved. Everybody looks like they fit between Dylan Barrero looking incredible out on the wing, Romney filling in their role, Bobby Wood, which we talked to Nigel coming
Blessing, who we'll see again this weekend when he's been in there, has provided.
So you got to look at it. These are the guys that are coming into this situation and fit what Bruce wants.
If he's hitting on all these, then let Veroni play out
and give him his time.
Got it.
Don't say, why isn't he coming in the 80th minute if it's a game you can win? Because Bruce doesn't think he's the guy that can help him win. It's as simple as that.
That's a problem then.
Why is it a problem?
6 weeks into the season.
Don't you think it's a problem in August, but you think it's a problem in April?
It's a problem next year.
It's a problem.
Or that.
It's a bigger problem this week if they lose. It's not a bigger problem this week because they tie last week. If they didn't win last week, I think you have a different taste in your mouth.
Tom, what do you know about Vrioni, right? Outside of what we heard from the scouting report when the Revolution first signed him, because it kind of came out of nowhere, if you remember that.
Yeah, we all looked like, who the hell is this guy?
And we were all looking him up. So why do you assume just because he's coming from Juventus that all of a sudden he's going to be this savior, like here's the striker, here's our next Adam Buxa?
I think it's less about...
Is it the designated player
It's less about
title?
where he's coming from. In Juventus, it's more about your designated player, and this is more on Bruce the GM than it is Vrioni the player, because Bruce the GM, I don't think has got this one right now. I think right now
he's got a pretty good track record.
Week 7. Well, we can go through that. We can go through Bruce the GM in a little bit.
Well,
I'm happy you brought that up.
But you got to think about the players that are the cornerstone of this team right now are here because of Bruce Arena.
Not Carlos.
And you're forgetting Petro, too.
And Petrovic. I'm saying, outside of Carlos Hill, but the majority of the rest of the guys are here because of Bruce Arena. Find me a GM in any sport that has hit 100% of the time. But he's also produced you a Supporter Shields, winner, failed in the playoffs. Okay. Last year.
Inherited Tejan, inherited Turner, and inherited
And
Carlos.
a lot has to do with, okay, now, how does that fit? What does that say about his managerial skill set then? Because if these guys now, he steps in, and now guess what? Those players are flourishing, and they go take off and make a ton of money.
Well, just go back to the other night. Josie Altidore comes in the 73rd minute. How many touches do you think he had in 17 minutes of play?
I would say less than 10.
Give me a number.
7.
6.
7.
7. There you go.
7.
Lucky number 7.
It's a lesson.
Complete guess.
Lesson. Again.
Still,
17 minutes
that's
of
not good.
17 minutes of play. Your choices are Josie Altidore, Giacomo Vrioni.
Tom,
You go with Josie.
I just said to you that if you're asking me, I would have liked to see Vrioni there, but there's something that we don't know that they are seeing right now. We got to keep doing this.
It kind of feels like it's worse than the Buxa situation. Buxa was PO'd because Arena made him ride the Pine Pony, and then Buxa goes out there, wins you a couple of games coming off the bench,
what did you just
forced
say?
Bruce to put Buxa in the
This
lineup.
is going to tear down the fourth wall a little bit, but you just said to Nigel, who we're going to have on later, what did you say you saw after the game?
Nigel Reo-Coker coming up on the show today. MLS season passes Nigel
Stay tuned for that.
Reo-Coker.
But what did you say that you saw in the locker room?
A despondent, let down Giacomo Vrioni that has no idea when the hell he's going to get.
And that's your opinion, but that's kind of exactly what you just said about Buxa.
Yeah. It's not. I mean, it's a fact. It's just the way he looks. You know, you look at somebody, you know that they're out of it mentally. So I think that's the biggest takeaway from the game. I think people like me,
the biggest
that
takeaway
the small percentage of people that come away from that game not thinking about, man, the referees really screwed the Revs. No, it's more you have so little faith in your designated player striker right now that you can't even get him on the field in a 1-1 game that should have been a game where you should have won, where you didn't have the best of nights, but at the end of the day, it's still a winnable game. That's it. That's it.
And you know what? All of that being said, do I wish that he was at a place that he could be on the field?
Yes.
Of course.
That's what I've been saying.
This isn't an anti-Vrioni take or me saying that, hey, maybe he didn't work out. I think it needs to take time. You got to give it time. And we don't know much about him. You're assuming this is the Lord and Savior. This guy's going to, it's Easter weekend, but this guy's going to come in and all of a sudden be the striker that's going to be leading the league and go. We don't know anything about him. So give him time to. But
this is the moment to prove yourself. Big game versus New York City FC.
I don't know if it is.
It's
though.
April.
Yeah.
And he spent the rest of the time that he was here last season injured.
Could he have done any worse than what Josie did in that 17
Yeah, but
minutes?
you're not here. We're saying that if you're asking us, we would have put Vrioni in. By the way, I probably would start Vrioni if you're asking me with who's on the field right now. But that's not what they're
I still
seeing.
think you're right. I don't see why you bench Bobby Wood.
That's probably the coaching mentality right now.
Yeah.
That's why you are a coach. What's out there has been working. I would like to still see some more offensive production that we're not seeing.
Right,
but that's maybe what they're working up towards.
At the very least, Bob. Sorry, just to put a little,
put a bow
on it. No pun intended.
Who's also, by the way, coming into the season, Tom was very critical of, but he's played pretty well.
Exactly. You know why? Because he has somebody he can play off of, and Bobby Wood. It's a guy that's you don't always need, Buxa was very much a guy that needed the ball at his feet he could make those diagonal runs, receive the ball in the box. He was big, and he could turn around and shoot with not a lot of space. But that kind of at times took Bo out of the game because he's somebody that likes the ball. He likes to create more, right? But when he was just the lone guy up top last year, you saw that he wasn't able to make those runs and create. It takes him out of the game.
He needs someone else to be focused on so he can get in and behind.
When you have a guy like Bobby Wood, who maybe isn't going to be your creative genius, but he's positionally sound as a striker, he frees up Gustavo Bo to get to roam around a little bit more, have the ball at his feet, create chances. He makes him better. So I don't think you change that right now. I think that's fine. Do you want Bobby Wood for 90 minutes? Probably not, but he's a veteran that can start the game and slowly work Vrioni into it.
All right, well, let's play some comments from Bruce during the week. We're not going to play Bruce laying into Sam after the game, telling Sam to get out of his head, thinking about Vrioni. Apparently it's not a legitimate question in Bruce's mind, so we won't entertain it this week.
I'm with him at this point.
That's Sam Minton from the Bent Musket.
Blazing Musket.
Sorry, what'd I say?
Former Bent Musket.
Sorry, yes,
Okay.
Blazing Musket.
But Bruce did have something to say about the fact that the referees did screw you last week, which is something I did say in the show. You haven't really been screwed at home by the referees, and you ended up getting screwed at home by the referees.
Tommy take.
Yeah. Here's Bruce on the Gustavo Bo goal that got called back.
Is there maybe a different mindset this year versus last year where you get the draw against NYCFC and it really probably did feel like a letdown?
Well, it's disappointing because we could have stole 3 points in the game on a day where we didn't play well, despite the fact that the goal callback was completely ridiculous by any person associated with the sport on the field would understand. Maybe the officials and the people that write about it don't know, but that's completely ridiculous. And pro has agreed that goal should have been allowed. But anyway, we didn't play well, but we were in position in the closing 10, 11 minutes to steal 3 points, and we didn't. So, and to me, it doesn't feel like a loss by any means, but we could have stole 3 points.
Yes, I agree with him there. But the problem is you didn't make the right decisions in the final 10 minutes of that game, personnel-wise, which is why you ended up in that position. And take Vrioni out of it for a second. Noel Buck didn't have the best
This
of
is
nights.
where I thought you were going. Now, this I agree with you. Noel Buck was gassed. We were there.
Yeah.
He's been playing in a ton of minutes. He's been playing very well. But he was making some mistakes that you would think would get him out of that game, and then made a totally egregious mistake. You cannot do that. That led to the corner kick. That ended up setting the goal. So that is where I thought you were going. That I agreed with. That one you got to kind of recognize that.
It just goes down to sometimes you fall down a slippery slope as a young player where you don't have that. You fall into the mentality that if you start to play poorly, you try to overcompensate.
That's what happens.
And then you get jittery and you start making stupid mistakes.
But I think, again, it's easy for us to say we're not on the sideline.
Right.
We're watching from 10,000 feet, but you got to get him out of the game at that point.
Yeah, I mean,
before that happens.
I do agree with that. I think, as a young player, you are on a shorter leash. And it not just for the game, but for also his mentality, for also his, the psychological part of it.
Because you don't want that to happen.
You don't want him to now go into the next game thinking, well, I just had a really bad performance and I was out there a long time. And it feels like an eternity. When you're having a bad game, it feels like you're on the pitch forever. And you got to know when to pull him. But we've also seen enough and heard enough from Noel to know that he's mentally pretty strong kid. And
just got to turn the page.
You just got to turn the page. And Bruce has dealt with a lot of young players. He's developed a lot of young players, and I think that he'll know kind of how to help them handle that as well.
But where you're going to go, Tom, is there because of the depth situation, which is better this year. There are options.
There
on
are
the bench
better
that,
options.
That could, well, not better, but there are options that could
there are
come
other
off.
options.
Yes.
You know what? This is a good bounce back week, at least, especially for a kid like Noel to shake that off because you're going up against a Montreal team.
Yeah, he didn't play poorly for the entire time.
No.
It was just as that second half went on, there were more mistakes, and you could see his mental kind of break down a little bit. But again, that mistake, if you go back to it, you just can't do it at that point of the game, at any point of the game, but at that part of the field, you just can't do that.
Montreal's only got 1 win on the year, 4 losses, but their 1 win does come against the reigning and defending Supporters Shield champion, so can't take this team lightly this weekend.
True, but I went back and watched this Montreal the last 2 games, and it's a very weird team. It's a team that is extremely inconsistent. They lost 5-0 last week, but they got a red card. They were playing down a man for 70 minutes almost. You go back to the week where they did beat Philadelphia 3-2, which they scored 2 goals, 89th minute on. Philadelphia got a red card, so they were playing down. So it's really difficult to gauge right now. So again, is this a team that they should beat? Yes. Is it a team that they should get 3 points from at home? Yes. But there are some players on this team that could hurt you.
Yeah,
especially
Victor Wanyama here.
Yep.
Well, that's that. I mean, sometimes these are the most difficult teams to play against, the ones that are inconsistent.
Kyoto, that he leads their team with the most goals as well. So again, this is a game that just like we talked about last week. And they're much better than this opponent at this point of the season. But you should get 3 here for sure.
The other comments from Bruce that we'll get to quickly before we get to Nigel Reo-Coker from MLS Season Pass was Bruce mentioned about how they haven't been playing great in the last 20 minutes of the game against New York City FC. It was something that happened against the game against Nashville. It's kind of back-to-back home games where they're not seeing it out cleanly. So that was something I brought up with Bruce this week at training. What are the positives you took away from Saturday?
The positives, we didn't play well and got a point against a good team. That's about it. We created a few chances. They created a few chances. It was one of those kind of games. But the last 20 minutes of the game, we didn't play well.
Have you noticed a pattern here at the last 2 home games, the last 20 minutes? It seems like you put yourself in maybe like in an unnecessary position.
I wouldn't. I don't think you have enough information to be drawing that conclusion.
And then, Bruce, I just wanted to ask, obviously you have your super draft pick, Joshua Bull.
I think you do have enough information after 2 games to at least have an idea.
I just love it. It's just the best. It never gets old.
But the last 2, Nick, would you agree? The last 2
Don't
home
you don't have enough information.
No, we
Don't look
need
at
a
me.
camera on Tom's face during these. Like, why is there
need 'em.
not? I remember. I don't know if it was ESPN during the NBA Finals or something, but they used to like go to cut the camera to the reporter actually asking the question. I need that. I need a camera on Tom.
You know what? I'll ask Adam and Dan this weekend. Maybe they can like shoot you off to the side.
Yeah, just
so
give
we
me
can
like
get
a side look because I need to know what your reaction. Because I low key think that you're smirking, like you want that.
Like
that,
this. Like
yeah,
this.
this is what he wants.
Yeah.
Poor on me for not asking the follow-up on Pro, but I think I got caught off guard when he said you don't have enough information.
That's the best.
That's like, damn.
Yeah.
What do you say to that?
What I wanted to say, what I should have said was, then why are you saying here that we didn't play great in the last 20 minutes, and you talk about playing too negative in the final 20 minutes against Nashville? What did you see in those 2 games that you didn't love, and what needs to be fixed? Like, he knows what the question is, but he spins it, okay? He's the spin doctor. He spins it, so he makes you think, well, it's only you don't really know how we are in the last 20 minutes yet. No, we have an idea. 2 home games back-to-back now against 2 pretty good teams in Nashville and New York City FC. You have the lead, and you don't cleanly close out a game and either get all 3 points or you make teams like Nashville believe they can steal a point on the road.
But they didn't, and they also tied NYCFC. So it's not like the end of the world right now. And by the way, you just don't have enough information.
Tom, you don't have enough information.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
The best.
It's absolutely amazing.
You know what?
Never retire.
We always
Please
talk about
never retire, Bruce. I'm begging you, never retire.
We always talk about Tom being invited to the arenas for the holidays. I think
You mean again?
Again,
Yeah.
I think I'm going to add Bruce to my Christmas card list. Just saying thank you for all that you do in roasting Tom. It's the best part of my day.
Nigel Reo-Coker from MLS Season Pass comes up next. We also got to talk about the Revs and Hartford in the U.S. Open Cup. So all that coming up on New England Soccer Weekly today. New England Soccer Weekly rolls along here, and joining the program now is a man who spent many years professionally playing football over in the Premier League. Also spent a lot of time here in MLS. You can now catch him as an analyst on MLS Season Pass, on the MLS Countdown pregame show, and the MLS Wrap-Up show every Saturday. He is none other than Nigel Reo-Coker. Nigel, welcome to Providence. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Always a pleasure to be here and always a pleasure to talk soccer, football, whichever terminology you prefer.
Both are good. Both are good.
Shout out
Yeah,
to Nigel doing this at the airport.
yeah,
right now.
he's at
Taking
the
some time for
airport.
us.
Yeah, that's it, man.
I apologize for that, gentlemen.
No need to
you're good.
apologize.
It's all
You're a
good.
busy man. We appreciate you giving us the time.
So, Revs-Montreal this weekend. You spend a lot of time covering both of these teams. Revs off to a hot start to get off to the year. Only one loss. They're coming off a tie last week against New York City FC, as we've talked about. Probably feels like a win. What are you looking forward to in this game this weekend?
I wouldn't even say that, Revs are coming off a hot start, because I hate when people say that, because I think for me, I'm one of those people that look at the product on the pitch. How New England Revolution play the game and their approach to the game is the biggest thing you should pay attention to. And I think the way they set up, the way they play and approach is fantastic. And it's consistent. You're going to get bumps in the road, but it's all about how you react from those bumps. I love how Bruce Arena has this side going in the sense of fullbacks in Jones and Bai get involved in the play. They don't just sit back and they're willing to get forward, and them getting forward creates more opportunities. So the style of play, for me, is what I look at. I see great consistency with them. And even when people talk about St. Louis being undefeated, and obviously it's a new thing with St. Louis coming into the league. But for me, I look at the consistency between St. Louis, New England Revolutions, and Cincinnati and LAFC. They're teams that are well coached, well organized. And I think they deserve a lot more credit than just saying, it's a fantastic start. It's appreciating what they do week in, week out is what I like to see.
So do you have them at one of the top tier teams in the league in general right now?
Yeah, in my opinion, so yeah. And I know how it is sometimes with how people look at the league, and there's certain so-called big markets that they want to look at. I look at the product on the pitch, and I think Cincinnati is another one that's going under the radar, as well as Columbus, where people are not talking about Cincinnati. And it's not just the fact, again, it's the style of play. It's being able to grind out results. It's going behind in games and coming back to get a draw. That's creating that winning mentality. And obviously with Revs having Bruce Arena there, you've got one of the most experienced and successful managers in the league. And it's no surprise how well the Revs are doing. But I think for me that they're a great team to watch. I spoke about it once or twice when we get the opportunity to cover New England, and I really love their style of play. And I think Jones and Bai, for me, are products that are being created to be the modern style fullback. They do the defensive duty, but they also get forward and make things happen. And that's what the level they should be coached at, and to understand that this is what you could be and capable of doing, like some of these top fullbacks in world football.
Yeah, that's something that we've talked about all the time, with the ability those two have athletically to play a little bit more of a European style coming out of the back and getting forward. And that really helps when you have a guy like Carlos Heel in the middle, coming off a game where he scored again. You cover this league. You've played all over the world. What's a player like Heel mean to have in the middle of the field to work with these guys?
Special. Absolute special. And I think what it is as well with that is you've got to give credit to, not only do you guys have Hill, but you've got the right pieces around Hill. Because it's all good to have Hill, but if you don't have the right pieces around him, like you've got Gustavo Bo and Bobby Wood, it won't make sense. Hill will not be able to shine like he does without having those pieces around him. And also the likes of, again, like we said, Bai and Jones getting forward and all that. That's what's making it such a successful. So it's such a well put together team, and that's what plays the part. I compare it to what you guys have in Hill, and you've got Wood and Gustavo Bo. You look at Austin, Driussi, one of the top players of the league again. You can't deny the talent that he has, but they haven't put the pieces around him. So as much as you've got a Driussi, if you don't have like a Gustavo Bo or a Bobby Wood around him, you've got no chance of success. You've got no chance of making things happen. But Hill, for me, is one of the best passers in this league. He probably is my top two when it comes to creative activity in the final third. And it's great and a pleasure to watch.
And what do you think, coming off of a season last year where the Revolution, obviously, they lost a couple of key players, and Matt Turner, Tajon, Adam Buxa, but, some of the players you've already mentioned, like Bobby Wood coming in, do you think just simply adding 2 or 3 of those players with Romney in the back, Dylan Barrero playing more full-time now, do you think that's been the biggest difference between this Revs team utilizing Carlos Hill properly, letting Bai and Jones get a little bit more active, going forward? Do you think just those 2 or 3 pieces have made that big of a difference?
I think the pieces have made the difference, but also I think, you've got to give credit to coaching. Bruce Arena, for me, and it comes down from coaching. I always believe that good leadership comes from up top. So from a manager like that, he can see prospectively what these players have and the attributes that they have and what they can contribute to the team. So bringing them in and also making them understand the job and what's required of them, I think that all stems from coaching, because these still young players, they need to be coached. They need to understand the game. And that comes from the managers and also having good coaches around him to let them understand, you're coming in now, this is what I expect from you, this is what I want from you, and it's about getting that consistency. So it's identifying the talent, but it's also letting them know what's expected of them and coming in. And I'm not someone that's big on the whole age thing. I always make fun of some of my colleagues when they're like, oh, he's only 18, 19. I'm like, yeah, I don't care.
Yeah.
The rest of the world doesn't stop because he's 18, 19. So that also plays a part. Hold on, sorry. I think I've lost.
No, we still got you, unless you can't see us.
Oh, you still got it. Okay.
There we go. We'll figure it out.
Up?
You're still here.
Yeah, we got you.
So it's interesting to hear you sing the praises of Bobby Wood, because there are some people that are a little skeptical if Bobby Wood can be the guy to carry this team, all the way through the season, especially right now. No Giacomo Vrioni. Doesn't seem like he's going to get a start anytime soon, although some people say that this would be the perfect weekend to start Giacomo with where Montreal sits in the standings. Start with Bobby Wood. Why are you so high on Bobby? Why do you think this was such a good addition?
I think for me, again, it's the connection with Hill. I think Hill understands him and sees him, and he's making the runs in the box. I mean, one of the games that I analysed was when I saw Jones getting forward. I think it was against Houston, maybe, when Hill made the pass. Jones got forward and put the cross across the box, and people might think it's a simple goal, but it's the fact that he's in the box, he's making the runs, and he knows what's coming. I think if he keeps on doing that, and again, what I want to kind of get the word out of people to understand in football is coaches never stop coaching. Like, we have to give a bit more scrutiny to coaches and the development of players. Players don't come into the league and are automatically developed. Good coaches, good managers identify the qualities of these players have, and it's for them to bring out another level and get them to understand that you could be as good as these players. Like for me, I always say that any young players that I helped at my time in the league, I was compared to the best players in the world. This is what they do. If you want to be the best, this is what you should raise your standard to. This is what you should be looking to. Because if you're not looking to the best, why are you playing the game? So I think that does have to go to the coaching aspect of it and understanding the dynamic. And I think with Wood he can do everything and he's making the runs. If he gets the service, his confidence is only going to get bigger and better. And the better players he plays with, when you've got the luxury to play with a Hill, you can only get better and better as a player.
Yeah, and we have here in New England Noel Buck, who's been an incredible young talent for the Revolution. Rumors starting to swirl as they do when a young player starts to show some promise about transfers. He seems to be handling it very mature. Speaking as somebody, I know you don't really care much about the age, but is that something that could eventually affect him this season if these rumors are constantly swirling? And how does Bruce kind of handle all that?
The difficult thing with that is mainly it's not so much the players, it's more so the people around them. That's the problem. It's the agents, it's the family members, it's people who've never played the game and understand the journey it takes to play football at the highest level and what comes with it. So they're easily swayed. And most of the time it's not their fault because there are a lot of snakes in the grass when it comes to this beautiful game of football. So it's not so much him. And I think all the manager can really do is just be honest with him, speak to him, and just see how he feels on a daily basis, how you feeling, what's going on, and get him to understand that the only way you can control those kind of situations is by performing on a football pitch. You're only as good as your last game. If you perform on the pitch, everything else will take care of itself. We see how it works with young players leaving this league and how they go and develop and, go on that next journey. It's not going to be a league that stops young players from leaving. But at the end of the day, if you're not performing week in, week out, you're not going to go anywhere.
So let's move again back to the game on Saturday night. This CF Montreal team, difficult to get a read on. So obviously they are at the end of the standings right now, but coming off a 3-2 win against Philadelphia where Philadelphia got a red card and a 5-0 loss last week where they got the red card. So can you break down this team, or what are we seeing so far this year?
Inconsistency. No real cohesion in that team at the moment. And then I think for me, when you look at the qualities that New England have and what they bring in their style of play, it should be a game that favours New England. I think for me that one thing that Montreal struggle at the moment is their back two. Their centre-backs are just not good enough and not understanding each other. They take great risks. They play a very high line, which can easily be broken if you find Hill anywhere in the pitch with his ability to know his next pass before he gets the ball, see the picture before the ball comes to him. Just a simple ball round the corner over the top with Gustavo Bo and Bobby Wood up top. They can run in behind and they'll be in countless times without having to play fantastic football. And also if the likes of Jones and Bayer continue to play their style of, joining in the play as fullbacks and attacking simple 1-2s, I think they can run ragged this Montreal black line because there isn't really a great cohesion there. And I think the high line that they play and the risks that they take can be easily broken with just a simple ball over the top. You see them struggle with that if they be very direct.
Well, you talk about Montreal's defense, and we just mentioned Giacomo Vrioni before. Is this the game you bring Giacomo in as the starter to get his confidence going here?
I would.
I think it's about consistency. That's what it is. You don't really want to dwindle too much. And again, it's so early in the season. Anything can happen. If you can maybe bring him in to make an impact 70 minutes into the game, maybe 60 minutes into a game, then yeah. But for now, I'll keep the same team as you can to get that consistency because you're really onto a good thing right now. You don't want to take any players out. And it's so early on in the season. And it's easy for when we sit back and say, oh, you take him out, you rest him. But no, it's difficult for a player because when you're in the groove, when you've got that momentum and that confidence going and everything's going in your favor, the last thing you want to do is be taken out. Because not many players who get taken out can go back in and reach those high levels that they were at before. So you keep them in, you only take them out if they're injured. So for me, I would say you don't have to bring him in this game, but you can maybe give him 70th minute, bring him in to slowly, keep bringing him in until it's the right time to start him.
It's interesting to hear you talk about confidence because I was in the locker room after the tie on Saturday against New York City FC, and I saw what I thought was a very despondent Giacomo Vrioni, for not being able to get into that game. It's a tie game. I mean, it's just amazing to me that with not even 10 minutes left in that game, you can even get him in that moment to try to, get a late goal or steal one late. I heard from somebody on the inside recently that what Bruce is doing with Giacomo is very similar to what Bruce did with Buxa. I don't know how much you've seen this situation play out here with how Vrioni is being implemented, but do you see any similarities with how Bruce is handling Giacomo and how he handled Buxa?
I think for me, again, like I said, Bruce is very experienced in this league and what he's done and achieved. I think you have to trust the process. If he's a manager that's not ever made the playoff and this and that, and he's been in so many dressing rooms, you have to trust the process and knowing what he does. And I think there's a right time, because sometimes as fans and spectators, as we all are, we think this and we think that, but it's not always that situation, because it's different when you're there day to day with the players and you're seeing training and certain things and certain aspects. And maybe it might be a psychological game that Bruce is playing with him that you guys will never know, but Bruce will see it in training, in how he responds in training and what goes on. Those are things that do happen in the training pitches of all football clubs with different managers that you had, that they do play that psychological game with players. And sometimes it might be that 2 or 3 training sessions in a row before a game that Bruce gets what he wants and sees he's hungry and says, right, you're starting this game, and surprises him.
Well, that's what separates Bruce from a lot of other managers. It's a discussion we have here regularly, is that some people put way too much stock in the designated player title, and they say, instead of they don't realize that there is more harm that can be done than good by forcing this player back. Bruce has said multiple times he's not ready. He's a player. He's not a designated player. He's a player.
And I think Nigel brings up a good point,
which is exactly what Nigel was just saying.
Which is what we're saying as well. Is like, we don't know what's happening on the day to day. This is a full season. We're going into Game 6. Would we like to see this player on the field and how he could work with a bow and a heel? Of course, but there's a reason this is happening.
Yeah, I agree with you guys. 1,000% agree with you guys. And again, I'm like Bruce. I'm not a massive fan on the whole designated player, because if you look at the modern game of football, world football, everyone is a top athlete and they're good players. You cannot pin too much hopes and pressure on one particular player, because one player does not make a team now in the modern game of football. We see it, whether we're watching the MLS or any other leagues in the world. You can't do that no more. The game has moved on so much now that every player has to feel equally a part of the team and equally as important as the other. Again, I'll go back to Austin. You look at Giroussi. He's a designated player. Everyone's going about the contract he signed. Look how much Austin is struggling right now. Austin, for me, if I was being brutally honest, are a one-man team. And you can't have that. That's just the reality of it.
I want to ask you about some world football news, because you're obviously tapped into everything happening on a global scale. And by the way, my best friend is a Villa supporter, so shout out to Coach Gabbard. But I wanted to ask what your thoughts about Lionel Messi being linked to some clubs in Saudi Arabia, and if you think that the dream of him coming over to here in MLS is over. I remember seeing some comments from you after PSG were eliminated from Champions League, with you saying that you didn't think Messi was fully engaged there, and if he was there mentally for PSG. Is he pretty much this departure from France? Do you think he's pretty much set in his mind that he's going to Saudi Arabia?
I wouldn't say he's definitely saying he's going to Saudi Arabia, but I definitely feel that his PSG, the PSG project is pretty much over. And again, with the PSG project, I think that should be a lesson to people to understand that you can't buy your way to success. With football, you have to build it. It's a building process. You establish something. You keep the connection with the community and the fans and what this beautiful game is about. PSG went to buy all the superstars. It never worked. They never worked because of the establishment that's got before them in these clubs and how they identify talent and get talent. I think for me, with Lionel Messi, when I looked at that game, very despondent, not into it, and I feel that, again, it's all the negotiation processes. Everyone wants him. So whether he'll come to MLS or go to Saudi Arabia, I think the difference is, the one difference that I've been honest with people and I said is, the money that he can be offered in Saudi Arabia is pretty much nothing that he could get offered over here in MLS, because they've got money for fun. And I know people are saying, oh, but he can own a club and buy a club. I think Saudi Arabia can give him money to buy any club he wants in world football, because, again, it's part of getting Lionel Messi over there, Ronaldo over there, building their league, They're trying to build their league. I believe that, they're trying to get TV rights and stuff like that. They're going to be very competitive. I think if you're being very honest about this, the difference between the Saudi Arabia and what China tried to do is Saudi Arabia don't really have government involvement to try and stop that, what China did with their domestic league. Saudi Arabia can continue to do it. I would not be surprised if he does go to Saudi Arabia, but I wouldn't say it's the end of him coming to Major League Soccer. I feel that he could still go there for a year or two and still come to Major League Soccer.
Does MLS even need Messi, though, at this point?
I personally, I understand why people would want that, but for me, I'm not that kind of person. I'm for me, grow your league organically, develop your own players, create your own superstars, let them be coached at a high level, go out there and make a name for themselves. That's what I personally believe. I feel that with most of these clubs, if you get more involvement within your community, there is so much talent in America. My time in playing in the league, I helped a lot of the young players there, and I saw a tremendous amount of talent. But if I'll be honest with you, I don't think the coaches and managers that I played under saw that and could identify the talent to understand that these kids could be developed to become something special. Watching the Premier League now, I look at Tyler Adams, Weston McKennie, and Aronson playing at Leeds United, and they're flourishing. Mm-hmm. And I feel that there's more in this league that can go over there and flourish like that with the right guidance and coaching. And I personally don't think so. I think America doesn't still realize what talent is available in this nation. And as you guys know, there's nothing better than seeing a young lad come from the community, the city you're from, representing your local club. There's nothing better. That's how I grew up in England when we were playing in the Premier League. It was all about local clubs. Everyone coming through, came through the period of when John Terry was coming through at Chelsea, Frank Lampard and Rio Ferdinand came through at West Ham. So everyone knew where they were coming through, and they still continue to elevate to go to another level. And it's nice to have foreign players with that extra bit of quality and understanding like that. But the league and the foundation of your league should still be based off that nationality and that nation. I know some people might not agree with that, but that's just my approach to it.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And, I know we're super thankful for the time you've given us. I don't want to take too much of your time, but you mentioned Premier League, you mentioned buying trophies. We know Chelsea's not doing that, and I'm a Chelsea supporter. I didn't want to bring that up. But is this the year? We have, Arsenal in a race for a Premier League title against really Man City at this point. Is this the year Man City, finally gets to the top in the Champions League, or is our
Whoa. I have to disagree with you there. No chance. Have you seen Real Madrid? Have you seen Bayern Munich? This is when we talk about establishments of club. Real Madrid and Bayern Munich, any player that goes to that club, I personally believe, and I said it, that there is an unwritten rule where the Champions League is the main priority. And they are sensational. They're sensational in the sense of how they run that club. And I'll speak especially also for Real Madrid. I'm not a Real Madrid fan, but I cannot do anything but admire how they run that club and what they do, how they recruit the talent, the likes of Tchouaméni, Camavinga, all these type of players were available.
Vinny, they've developed Vinny as well.
100%. And then they've got the latest superstar from Palmeiras that I covered, the young lad at Palmeiras who's just gone there for 60 million at the age of 16. Their recruiting is second to none. It's literally a foundation. I think that's how some clubs should be. The problem sometimes when you get clubs or ownerships is that they get a manager in place. A manager has his idea. He wants to bring his players in. You buy all these players. Then the manager doesn't get the results. You sack him. Another manager comes in. You do the same thing again. It becomes a cycle. Until you can establish your club to say, these are the type of players that we play. All we want you to do is manage these players. Come here and manage these players. It's going to be a never-ending cycle. And talking about your team, Chelsea, I think that's something they're going to face for a long time.
Yeah.
Because again, it's showing how not to run a football club right now.
It's been tough to watch. Like you said, it doesn't feel like it's going to change anytime soon.
Nigel Reo-Coker joining us on New England Soccer Weekly this week. Make sure you catch him on the MLS Countdown pregame show and MLS wrap-up show every Saturday. We graciously appreciate the time today, and we'll catch up with you again soon, Nigel.
Thank you, guys. Pleasure. Thank you for having me. And I call a New England win. I'm going to go for 3-0 New England.
I love it. I love that.
Wait. With the Vrioni goal?
Pardon?
With the Vrioni goal?
If it's 2-0 before 70 minutes, then yeah.
I like that. There we go.
That's our first prediction.
Yeah.
That's our first prediction on the show. I
I
love it.
love that. No, Nigel, we appreciate that very much, man, and we'll definitely have you on again sometime soon.
Thank you, guys. Pleasure. Have a great day.
Safe travels. Thank you.
Final segment here on New England Soccer Weekly.
Screaming for this
Jeez,
week.
and let me sit down. You do this every week. Let me sit down and pick up my microphone.
It's okay. You'll be okay.
Thank you for not screaming
Had
at
a lot of
Niles,
coffee.
though. You were very nice to him.
Well, we appreciate Nigel Reo-Coker coming on the show today. Very
That's our
nice
guy.
Love catching up with the MLS season pass crew. So appreciate all the love there. All
They're
right,
a
so
squad on Apple, and they're just joining the show every week. You
That's
love
right.
to see it.
We're
Just
family now.
cannot complain.
It's family.
Yep.
we might as well be part of the Apple deal at this point.
Oh, here we go.
The Revs will host Hartford Athletic on April 25th at Gillette Stadium.
See, Mike, you said earlier, what is he saying on Twitter Spaces? What is he saying on the show? We don't even know.
Tom's a definition. If you give a mouse a cookie,
Yeah.
he's going to want a glass of milk.
I've never heard that one before.
It's a classic children's book. You should read it.
I don't read much very often.
Neither do I. I don't even know how to.
That makes
picture
a lot-
book.
That makes a lot of sense to me for both of them.
The Revs hosting Hartford Athletic in the third round of the U.S. Open Cup.
Little New England rivalry.
Yeah.
A lot of people upset about this one because of the venue choice.
Of course.
Why the venue choice, though?
Because you would
Well,
rather
here's
play
the
it
thing.
because they actually have a nice field in Hartford.
No, they do. They have
The Revs would have hosted anyways. But it's more about the traditionally up here, the Revs would go play at PC or Brown or Harvard or one of the local colleges to kind of create more of that soccer-specific stadium feel that you would get when you sort of play at a smaller venue. And it also would be, easier, especially when you're playing up in the Boston area, so it would pretty much be Hartford, or BU, one of those, Nickerson Field, one of those two venues in which you would play. I don't know if they played at Nickerson, but Nickerson would be, an option just because it's easy and accessibility-wise. But it's pretty much pointless at this point to play these games at the college venues outside of the novelty of having the Revs on the road in their home state. So I'm not against this. I think a lot of people would like the access, and they don't like going down to Gillette for an Open Cup game. But hey, Gillette's home field advantage.
Was I the best thing to ever happen to the U.S. Open Cup?
No.
Because if we go back a couple years ago when I absolutely...
Pull the clip.
Yeah. We got to find the... I'm sure somebody will at some point because I was very open about how much I did not care about the U.S. Open Cup.
This was, I think, your first big stance on this show.
Yeah. And I also, listen, again, can always admit when I'm wrong. I was wrong, but I also haven't seen as many people talk about the Open Cup as I have in the last 2 years. And I think it's because of the growth of the USL and popularity. They're streaming their games more, so the American soccer fan is able to see the USL and some of these smaller clubs play a lot more. So now there's more interest, and now you have kind of that David versus Goliath when you have some of these USL teams make a run. I will admit I was wrong. I was incorrect, okay? Do not hold me to that. Take the books a thing. I can admit when I'm wrong. I'm all in on the Open Cup. I'm all in. All in on the Open Cup. I want to win it as a Revolution fan, but also now here in Rhode Island, starting next year, Rhode Island FC would love to see them take down the U.S. Open Cup. But I see what your point is, Tom, in regards to playing to smaller stadiums, because that was my memory of the U.S. Open Cup, was that in my head, right, dumb person, it was always, well, if it was so important, why aren't the Revs playing at Gillette Stadium? That was always my take. I see why now, but a few years back, that was always my take.
Yeah, it's a Tuesday night. It's a random Tuesday night, so it's
I don't think that's far off, though. If
fair.
If you're like, they're playing here, does this not mean as much if they're not playing at Gillette?
That's a
I can
fair
see
take,
that. That's not that bad.
Well, if Bruce wasn't here, you'd probably have it go the old way. But my birdies tell me that Bruce believes it's an advantage.
He's reading off the phone right now, so this is good. So we make sure he gets it right.
He's reading it like my dad tries to read. He's holding it out here. He's
When
like,
I finish this, please.
Can I look at the font?
No, I don't give up my sources.
Yeah, but I want to see the font text.
No.
Like how big
he
is
has
it?
a super
regular
zoom.
font text.
Sorry, Tom. Finish your.
You gotta wrap
we're
up
against the
anyways.
clock here. Yeah.
Bruce believes it's an advantage to play at Gillette. Going to an unplayable, poopy, small venue does no
We're on
favors
YouTube.
on the pitch in pursuit of winning it. So, yeah. It's one of those things where if you're really going to go for it, use all the advantage that you can.
Yeah.
Nobody likes playing at Gillette Stadium. It
could be intimidating for a Hartford for some players who maybe
Yeah,
haven't played at the
something
stadium.
new.
It won't be full, but it will be.
It could also
It's
be
a big stadium.
It could also be something really cool too. I mean, if you grew up in this area, I remember the first time that I walked on the Gillette Stadium field, you're like, I can't believe I'm here right now.
Yeah.
If you're playing on it, it's kind of dope.
Do you go for it? Do you think this team is deep enough to make a run? You have a couple of competitions coming up this year. You have the Leagues Cup that's going to be coming up later in the summer with Liga MX.
I think that's
US
a cool
Open Cup.
tournament.
I think you have two legitimate tournaments that you can really chase, depending if you can get healthy. If you get Tommy Mack back here, you get Nacho Heel back, which we haven't talked about.
Because you need to have the depth to
right.
longevity.
Sustain,
And then this is where you
But you got to go for
Jack
both.
P.
You're in
and
these
Esme.
tournaments. You don't just. It's not a wash. You're in it to win.
Definitely.
I think it'll be interesting to see how serious Bruce does take these competitions. I think, again, you definitely are deeper this year than you were last year. MLS Cup is obviously going to be priority.
Still priority.
But
Priority one.
at the same time,
But these could help get there.
Yes, and I think you are certainly built for a deep cup run this year.
And you know what? It's just like there's a lot of leagues in Europe and stuff that hang their hats on some of these domestic cups, and that way they can say it was not a complete wash of a season.
This means we're out if you're watching on YouTube.
Yeah.
We're done. Everybody have a great holiday weekend.
Yeah, you too, man.
Match
Shut
day
up.
7, Revolution, CF Montreal, Gillette Stadium.
On
Saturday
MLS
night.
Season Pass.
Yes.
On Apple TV. 7:30 kickoff. Thanks again to Nigel Reo-Coker. And that's about it.
Bruce.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you.